Everybody. I was going to say the Wednesday night show just on Reflex, and look at that. I would have been wrong. This is the Tuesday night golf show. Match play has changed it all. This is the normal, late night live before lock. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Jason Roslin, obviously on awesomemode.com, and we're ready to break down the match play format. I've been building teams. I'm dying here. How have you found this format? Do you find it tough, or is this an event you're kind of into?
Yeah, I find it kind of fun, to be honest with you. It just adds another level of strategy to building your lineups, and I guess for one time a year that can be kind of fun. So we're gonna go. We'll go with that. I guess I do like the match play format. Me personally, when I'm playing, I would rather play match play because I'm notorious for that 8 or 9 and then string together a couple of birdies. So the match play definitely maybe fits me better, and certainly might fit a few of the golfers we'll talk about tonight, and we'll do that. And we're also going to do tonight, as you guys can probably see on your screen, we're going to do how to set up some groups and go through some fantasy cruncher tutorials this week, because it's really a great tool to use, especially for this week when we're trying to optimize our lineup. So if you want to see anything else while I'm doing this, it's kind of a free preview that, of course, if you're an Awesome member, you can reap the benefits of.
Definitely. So yeah, this is a week more, we talk about sometimes with ownership and other things that you want to be cognizant that you can be behind the 8 ball before the tournament starts. This is a week that you could just be out of it before the tournament starts if you don't know what you're doing. Obviously, I think it's a common theme. If you've watched shows, you're going to know you don't want to take guys in the same group. You want to spread it out. The goal, even though it's probably not going to happen, is to get 6 guys out of those 8 final spots, in the quarters. So to do that, you got to allocate the groups. It is tough to build, though. I will say I've been careful, but man, it gets tricky at the end trying to make a reasonable lineup while adhering to some of the rules that you need.
Yeah, for sure, and I think we can start kind of right off the top there and just talk about the general strategy and what you exactly mean by you could start off the week and be far behind. So of course, I mean, we'll just get the very basic strategy out of the way. I'm sorry, I don't mean to repeat or take a little bit of time here, but simple. You want to have your golfers play the most holes that they can possibly play. You want your lineup optimized with the most possible holes playable. So that simply means, you got to break it into quadrants of what groups can get to the final 4. And then from there, of course, the final 2 guys, I think that's where some interesting strategy can come in. Specifically last year, Ben, I'm sure you probably saw the winning $5 lineup had a guy that did not advance at a group stage. And when you think about it, that does make sense because you can't fit all of the guys that are going to get out of group stage. First off, of course, there's 16, but you can't fit them all even in, let's take the top 6. You can't fit them all because of the salary that are going to end up doing it. So was really interested to see the guy Kevin Chappell, who was at 6,500, was the guy that was in that winning lineup last year in the $5. So found that interesting. Is that something maybe you're going to take a look at and maybe put in a 6,500 guy in every lineup just because it seems like you might be able to get away with a punt if you do optimize the rest of your lineup?
For sure. This is a format where I think there's some guys who are playing poorly in Overmatch, but there's some other guys that are cheap that I think can win their groups. I'm making lineups with 6 guys, and I'm not going to say expect them, but I hope that they win their groups. Realistically, there's going to be some really good lineups if you have 4 guys advance, 5 advance, as you talked about. Getting all 6 through the group it could be, depending on who it is, it could be almost impossible. So, you just want to set yourself up. It doesn't mean it's going to be success, but if you have guys playing each other in their group, that's not going to work. I think we all know that. So that's just basic strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some people that said, okay, well, hey, what if I optimize 5 out of 6 in a cash game lineup and I double up a guy? It's just not the optimal way because you guaranteed know one of your guys prior to starting that lineup is not going to make the round of 16.
Yep.
Again, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to get a 6 of 6 lineup through the round of 16. It likely is not, but still, what happens if both guys miss? Now you're out 2 guys, so it's just not optimally what you want to do there. So That's kind of the basic strategy. So want to talk about the groups, and we can kind of go a little bit group by group here if you'd like to.
Sure.
But I found it very interesting that it was actually a lot harder to build a quality lineup than I thought. You know, with DJ Price so far, and we can start off right with Group 1. DJ Price at 11,400. I did find it a little hard to find 3 other guys that I was confident in that would make the round of 16 and win their group. So are you finding it more difficult to roster DJ this week and say Rory, or are you finding ways to do it anyway?
I certainly found some ways to do it, but I tell you what, I mean, this is a situation. It has some similarities to March Madness in the sense that I kind of feel like you got to build backwards. You know, you pick 4 guys you think that have maybe a chance to make some runs, and then spread it out and see how you get there. But just what my first takeaway, and I do want to touch upon the groups. The left side of this bracket is insane. You've got DJ, you've got Rom, you've got JT, you've got Day. And that made it tough for me, at least, to get someone like DJ in a ton of lineups. I did start with him here and there, but like you said, it's not. You take him, you're not going to be able to take some of these other guys. So you might have a region, or call it a quadrant, where you're banking on a mid-sevens guy to carry the region in theory, and that's a tough ask. So that's the trade-off of taking a guy like that.
No, it for sure is. And again, I think if we look at it, right, if we look at what happened last year, obviously we know we're gonna need that Cinderella. As you said, kind of very similar to March Madness, right? We're gonna need that Cinderella team or Cinderella team, I said, Cinderella guy to get us through. And I've got a couple of guys, and certainly we can talk about those as we march on. I'm trying to pull up a bracket here that we can put on our shared screen before we start our tutorial here. So hopefully all you guys can see that here on the up screen. So as he was talking about that left-hand side of the screen, it's Matsuyama obviously has been coming in. He's playing in arguably tee to green, just as good as form as DJ. But when you look at that left-hand side of the bracket, if DJ is able to get out of the group, it looks like he could get to the quarterfinals relatively easy. Sergio Garcia is not playing great, and I'm moving to the 16 group now. I'm going to group these as we talk about it and who they would play in their round of 16 matchup. I think it just paints a little bit of a better picture.
Yep.
But what do you make of Patrick Reed? I mean, his wife called in a David Ledbetter, who's a notorious coach and is now his coach. It's really struggling. Could you see Shane Lowry getting out of the group, or is it all the Sergio all the time for you? Or are you avoiding it because you don't think he'll beat Matsuyama or DJ in the round of 16?
So that's the point I wanted to bring up. I think the group itself, in terms of Group 16, is wide open. I like most, think Sergio is the guy to beat there. But the biggest problem is, even if you get it right, if they run into DJ or even Decky, I don't know how many times they're getting out in terms of getting to the quarters. And it's not going to be the worst thing in the world if you do get it right, but it seems like an unnecessary risk in certain lineups. So that is a tough ask. And you want to be cognizant of that. It's not just about who is in your group. It's who is, you don't want to project too far down the road, but if there's a murderer's row coming up, that's tough to say I'm going to allocate 8,500 for Sergio and hope he gets out of the group and then hope he possibly beats DJ. That's a tough ask.
Yeah, it sure is. And when we get into the groups here and using Fantasy Cruncher, again, this is something you really want to take note of. This top left-hand side of the bracket that you guys see here that I'm highlighting, again, you want to break those into quadrants. And if you're a member here at Awesemo, I put it into my model this week. I broke it out into the 4 quadrants. And when I create the groups here in just a little bit, once Ben and I get into that, you're going to see that's how I break out, because we want all of our lineups to start. The first 4 guys, you want them to start with 4 guys from different quadrants to give you a chance at the final 4. So just thought I'd bring that up as we talk about it. So the next 2 groups that are going to be looking at playing the DJ / Sergio Garcia in the Elite 8 would be groups 8 and 9, headed by John Rahm and Xander Schauffele, respectively. Let's talk about Group 8 here for a second, though. Got some sleepers. I see a sleeper here who, if he can putt, we know he does well on Pete Dye courses, winning the Players, should have won the RBC Heritage a week ago. I'm talking about Siwoo Kim at 6,500. He's one of those guys that I'm plugging in because he could get to the Elite Eight and play DJ, and that would be far and away enough for that price for him to return. So he's one of those cheap guys that I've added in. JB Holmes is terrible in match play. And Matt Kuchar, I don't know that he can beat John Rahm. What are you doing with Group 8 here?
Group eight's tough. Obviously, Rom is another. He can be a starting block. He can carry an entire region for you if you want to go that way. And I did, it relates. We did have a question in chat about how many players in the pool. I have a lot of guys in my pool this week. I took out some people that are just playing brutally. Satoshi comes to mind. Where I didn't have a ton of a guy like that. But other than that, I think you can go to guys like Siwoo. It's all about lineup construction. And like you said, he's someone, if he gets out of his group, he's not going to hurt you. Even if he loses right in the Sweet 16, that is more than enough. That is a huge win for you at 6,500. You're going to be able to allocate that money to DJ, to Rom, not Rom if you pick Siwoo, but someone else, Brooks on the other side, maybe. So I don't mind that. Xander's group to me is wide open. Tough one to break down. I think RCB's the most logical choice when you factor everything in. But the other three, certainly viable. That's a wide open group.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like I said, it's JB Holmes is probably the only one I'm not going to play just because his history with match play is just really bad.
I have no interest in him either.
Yeah, Group 9, really interesting one. I admittedly will say Lee Westwood is part of my lower price guys that I've put in, and that's because Terrell Hatton and Rafa Cabrera-Bello's approach game has been abysmal lately. Just really, really bad. Xander Schauffele has been up and down for a guy that's priced 9.4, so I'm kind of leaning Lee Westwood here. Are you with me, or are you going to go to Xander anyway?
I have some Lee Westwood. The problem I have with Xander is the opportunity cost is massive. If you take him there, well, then obviously you're not going to be playing Rom. Him and DJ in the same side, that's just too much salary to have in one quadrant.
Yep.
And then you're basically asking Xander to come out to the Final Four. I'm not doing that. I think there's too many other guys. Again, do I have a little Xander? Sure, but he is not part of my core. Terrell Hatton, just a side note, just didn't have a round in the 70s last week. He did the old 68-81 move, which is highly disturbing. You shouldn't be allowed to play the week after that. But to me, a little RCB, some Westwood salary relief. And again, he's in the same boat as Siwoo. If he can get out of the group, that is a huge win.
Yep, for sure. So this is the top left quadrant, the quadrant 1. I'm naming it just because it's the first one we talked about. So as we move along, what I'm going to go do is, as you guys can see in the shared screen here on the third screen, I have the Awesemo.com site pulled up, and of course the Fantasy Crunchers extension on it. And what I'm going to do is I went to advanced options and went to groups here, right in the middle tab. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to add in the players by quadrant, and I'm going to create the groups. And by the time we're done with it, you'll see all of the quadrants entered into the 4 different groups. So you're just going to see me do that as Ben and I continue to talk. And then at the end, we'll go through the tools and how to make sure that we're going to get one from each. So as we move on to quadrant 2 here, we'll start right off at the top with probably a name in group 4 in quadrant 2 here that you probably haven't heard much of, but he's won 5 times over the last 12 months. And I'm talking about Justin Harding. From South Africa. He is playing in the Rory McIlroy group with Matt Fitzpatrick and Luke List. And how about your boy Rory McIlroy, 11-7? Are you playing for the heading to Augusta 2 weeks early and going to win the Grand Slam, or the career Grand Slam, or do you think he gets it done again this week?
He's playing so well, but man, this is, and maybe I read too much into it. It just feels like a sandwich spot of, he won the Players, Augusta, everything is in front of him. Does he, not that he's going to not try, but 7 rounds in 5 days, is that really what he needs right now? Get a couple rounds in, relax. I hope he gets bounced, personally, just because I root for Rory. And I think he's by far the riskiest of the elite guys. And it's, for me, at 11-7, I just have a hard time going there. I know he's playing phenomenal, but there's just too much opportunity cost for playing him. His group is interesting. If it's not him, who is it? Is it Fitzy? Probably the best guy, but you could make it say, you know what, I'm going to take a total flyer. You mentioned Harding's playing really well. And Luke List is there, he's capable. So Not
Yeah,
Rory for me.
yeah. Here's the thing about Luke List. Obviously, last year he had the whole putter incident here where he broke
Oh,
it.
yeah, I forgot about that.
But he makes a ton of birdies. He's a quality ball striker, and I think that just hitting green after green, whether he's going to make the putt or not, might be able to get into the heads a little bit of Harding. So I actually do like Luke List as a little bit of a sleeper. He was giving a game to the AC last year before breaking his putter. So I'm not going to lie, I do like a little bit of Luke List here as we move down. Again, what I'm playing for there is Rory to not make it out of the group and Luke List to use his length to get out of the group. So again, that's just what I'm doing. The winner of that group is going to get the hardest group for me, by far the hardest decision of the week. And that's group 13 with Patrick Cantlay and Tiger Woods sitting at the top. Man, what a tough draw for Tiger Woods. Aaron Wise and Brandt Snedeker. Snedeker also playing extremely hot right now. So really tough draw for Tiger. You think he prevails and comes through, or are you avoiding this group, or are you going into Cantlay, or what are you doing here?
So it is one of the toughest. There's a lot of groups where I think there's either one guy to beat or there's one guy who has not no chance, but who's a clear third. And then there's some groups like this where I think that Aaron Wise, he's the flat min. He could easily come out of this group. Is he the most likely? No, he's the least likely. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. He's playing okay. The guy that for me, Tiger's last. I hate to say it. I just couldn't pay the money. I'd rather play Cantlay. I'd rather play Sneds, who's playing really well. And I am building some teams, obviously. When I select the guy from this group, I'm assuming in my mind that they're not going to get Rory in the next round. That's the hope, because I would not take someone and want them to run into Rory here. So if you can do that, definitely viable that they can make a run, and you're not breaking the bank with a guy like Cantlay or Sneds.
No, exactly. And I think that will keep ownership probably down a little bit on Tiger. And again, like you said, it's not as much about ownership this week as it about optimizing your lineup. So I think that's key here when we're chatting about that. So Snedeker switched coaches. I know you and I like to talk about kind of those, or at least I do, and I make you listen to me talk about the golfing changes and equipment changes. Snedeker changed his coach, and man, he's looked so good after doing that. Yeah, just more consistent. Another good finish last week. So at 7,800, definitely a little interested there. These guys, whoever comes out of this bottom middle, I'll call it, I guess, bottom left side of the bracket, they're going to get the winners of the next two groups. First one we'll talk about, Group 5, Justin Thomas, Keegan Bradley, and Lucas Beauregard and Matt Wallace, two Euros that I've been playing a lot recently. I said Keegan and Bradley because he did it again last week, was 600 on day one, ended up at -3, but then ended up missing the cut on Friday. Where are you going with this group? Is this pretty clear-cut Justin Thomas, or can you see Matt Wallace making a few putts?
So JT, in terms of the top end guys, kind of falls right in the middle. I have a couple ahead of him. He's certainly ahead of Rory for me, but I think his group is low key tough. I'm not a big Keegan guy in this week, but I think Biergard and Matt Wallace are scrappy enough to give him some problems. I'm not saying they beat him per se, but you're saying 70, 100, 60, 200. Obviously, JT is going to be a starting block of your team. If you play him, that's 11,000. You're going to have to find guys like Matt Wallace and Biergard in other groups to make that work. So I definitely have, what I'd like to do is, conceptually, I'm not going to put my guys that I feel most confident, I'm going to isolate them, and then I'll take two shots at some of the regions where I have flyers. So like you can use like Matt Wallace up top and Fitzy on the bottom of the same region, and you say, you know what, if there's pure carnage down there, at least I have two bullets rather than just JT by himself, which is he could carry it on his own.
For sure, and he's got decent course history, but has been maybe we'll say sporadic with his play. He had the lead early at the Players, and then kind of was a non-factor when it was all said and done. It wasn't kind of, he was a non-factor when it was all said and done. So who knows where his full game is at this point? Obviously, with it not being maybe in its best form, somebody like a ball striker like Beauregard can give him a run, or Matt Wallace, like we both mentioned. The guy is lights out putter. So if he just goes on a run one day of putting, he could beat Thomas for sure. The next group, which we would get the winner of Group 5 in the Sweet 16, is the hardest group for me to peg, which probably means I'm going to end up avoiding it. It's Stenson, Day, Furyk, and Mickelson. I just had a hard time. In my model, they're all separated by 4 points, which is by far the closest out of any of them. So for me, toughest to peg. How about you?
It's a tough one. I'm going away from Jim Furyk. I just don't think his game suits this style. He's playing really well, obviously. I think I picture match play more of kind of like Jason Day type, where it's like, okay, he's gonna have a couple holes where this would have been a triple, but the ability to make putts, the ability to be aggressive, it's gonna suit him. The tricky thing here is, again, Jason Day. He's an awesome play. I would love to play him, but if you take him, you're sacrificing some stuff, and you might not even be able to get him with, DJ or someone like that. It's very tricky. So, Stenson and Phil, I'm kind of neutral on. I use them in spots when I wanted to take someone from this group. But all in all, it's not the best spot to attack, in my opinion. You have a lot of ifs, and there's a real chance that they get JT. So it's a tough group, and then it might be a very tough opponent. That's not it's a recipe. When we're kind of playing a guessing game here, you're stacking kind of the deck against yourself.
Yeah, agreed. It's a really tough one for me, and again, you don't need to play a guy from every group at all. Obviously, you can't since there's 16. So this is just one that's probably going to get the least amount of my shares for sure. So that covers a quadrant 2 there. As we move over to the right-hand side of the bracket, I'll pull this back up. We just covered all these down here, and now we're going to cover the top right over here. And we'll go ahead and start right off with Justin Rose. For me, this was a really tough group. Not quite the group of death. That one's coming up in a little bit for me, but still ranked pretty high. As he's got Gary Woodland, Grillo, and Pepperell. Who Pepperell is a loose cannon. The guy can shoot 7 under or 7 over. Grillo's a great ball striker. So I found this to be a really hard group for Rose, as he has been inconsistent. And if you're going to pay $10K, you want a guy with a little bit more consistency, wouldn't you think?
That's the theme of this whole thing. Like, of course, Rose is the favorite to get out of this group, but if you hitch your wagons to Rose, you're going to have to take some dicey. You can't get the favorites in all the groups. Let's just get that out there right now. That's just not how it works.
Exactly.
So for me, no, this is a group where I have more of the Griots of the world. Gary Woodland's the toughest one for me. He finally missed a cut last week, and I think we both kind of felt that was coming. Yep. I don't worry about it too much, but at the same time, it's a tricky little spot for him, and it's a group with 4 viable guys. Pepperell, I don't expect him to advance, but we know he can go low. We know he can get hot for a stretch. So even if he doesn't advance, he's not a free square when you play him. So not the best group for me. Again, I'd pay down if I had to choose someone from the group, though.
Yeah, I think that's really great points. I will say I'm probably a little bit I'm probably a little bit more into Woodland than I should be at this point. 7,800 just seems kind of a good price tag, which I do think that he could beat Rose and get out of this. But it is a tough segment for me. And however, their Sweet 16 matchup is possibly against the worst group of the tournament. Maybe Patrick Reed's group's worse, but this one might be a close second. It's Bubba Watson, Billy Horschel, Jordan Spieth, and Kevin Na. Bubba has come out and publicly said he hates the tournament, hates the course, even though he's the defending champion. Billy Horschel only is putting right now, isn't doing anything else. Jordan Spieth can't keep the ball in the fairway, but he was the first golfer there this week. Seems like Jordan Spieth has a chance to get to the Sweet 16 if Justin Rose loses.
So this group is, I think, definitely the worst. Yet I have extreme interest in the group itself. All 4 guys have garnered some appeal. Bubba's a little dicey. Spieth, I am playing some. I know it's really risky. And then Kevin Na, who withdrew last week, I don't know what the deal is there. And Billy Ho, like you said, he's just putting. So it's a situation, though. I think this is where you can get a little frisky. I wouldn't be stunned to see one of these guys come Sunday be right there with a chance, but it's more about how do you want to allocate that salary? Is this where you want to make a stand with a guy like Speed? He's a little. If he was like flat 8K, I would have a decent chunk of change on him. He's still a little pricey for me. I rolled the dice with a guy like Kevin Na in certain spots. I really did because I think he can easily get out of this group.
Yeah, Kevin Na again, another withdrawal post lock last week. It's just a theme for him. I don't expect him to do it this week because it's the match play, but his form it just seems pretty bad. I mean, I know he had the thing with Tiger at the Players that was kind of fun, but he MDF'd there. I just can't get there with Na. I'm obviously going to Jordan Spieth and to Bubba Watson in the two spots. I really don't know how to read the Bubba Watson thing. I liked him as a good play, but the dude has come out and publicly said he hates the course, even though he won last year. Got to the Sweet 16 the year before, too. So how do you make Bubba right now? What do you make of this?
Nothing. Everything he does annoys me. I want to like Bubba, but he just everything he does. It's just like the NBA All-Star game or whatever that not like is. Oh yeah, I'm going to withdraw, and then he won. I think that was Genesis. It's not good. It's one of these things I don't take it too seriously because it's Bubba, but there's definitely some truth that he's Bubba style, and if he gets going poorly, I worry about him. So for me, his group it's certainly giving him a boost. Like he could, if Spieth can't keep it in the fairway and Kevin Na is injured and Billy Ho isn't really playing well, he's just putting. Bubba by default is playing the best. There's no real argument about that.
Yep, especially with kind of a sneaky top 10 last week. I think he tied 6, right, if I'm not mistaken?
He rallied late. He put a couple birdies on the board while people like the Roberto Castro were just go. Just get off the screen with your 10 over par on Sunday. So, yeah, Bubba sneakily was very solid last week.
Yep, he was. And a really, really nice against the grain play there, too. Just not a lot of people going to him. So they are going to get in the Elite 8, the winners of the 10 and 7 matchup. We'll start with Group 7, and we've got Molinari, Simpson, Oleson, and Kodaira. And, the great thing about match play, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has their way to do their own strength index and such. And one of the ones that I saw out there was that actually Webb Simpson should have probably been the 1 seed here, but I don't know why. Regardless, what do you make of this group? Obviously, Kodaira seems like he's a free pass at this point. I'm not going to say that because anything could happen, but the guy has done literally nothing since the RBC Heritage. So what do you make of this group? I think Oleson makes enough birdies to at least maybe give them a game, but what do you make of it?
Satoshi, the only reason I would roster him is if I have a build where I just need a flat min guy in that quadrant. That's literally the only situation for me. The other 3, I certainly think are playable. Molinari, I know I keep repeating myself, but he's another guy in a price range where it's tough because if you spend with him, I don't think he's an overwhelming favorite in this group, and you're spending over 9,000 for him. So like for me, it's a group where I like Oleson. He can get hot. He certainly can handle these guys. We've seen him be good in WGCs before, and you're not even remotely breaking the bank. He's allowing you to spend up on other groups. So with a guy like Kodaira in there, like you said, anything can happen, but it's very possible he's 0-3. Now it's a 3-man where it's a couple matches. I'm gonna roll the dice there on the lowest priced guy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair strategy to take in that one. So moving to Group 10, and this is where I am pulling out the Cinderella. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that the Cinderella's got a best chance to come out of this one. And it's because I think that a lot of guys are very similar and could beat up on each other. And Abraham Answer in Group 10 could just sneak away with it. Paul Casey's coming off a win. He just won 2 days ago. He's got to turn around and basically play right again on Wednesday. No time to celebrate his win. So I'm going to fade there. Charles Howell and Cam Smith are probably both going to be very popular as they're cheap and had good years last year here. So I think I'm going to go Abraham Answer. Striking the ball well. It's another Pete Dye course. He just came 12th at the Players after kind of a Sunday falter. Are you jumping back into Abraham Answer, or is this a case of Charles Howell and Cam Smith are just too cheap to pass up?
So I'm with you. We deviate a little at the end there. I'm with you. I don't think Paul Casey is the guy that I want to go to too often. I do like Cam Smith a good amount. He's cheap enough. I know he's going to be popular, but I really think he's the man to beat in this group. Having said that, I have some answer. I get that logic. He's similar to Olesen, where it's that same concept. With Kadira, it's no offense to him. I don't think he has a chance. With Casey, it's that I don't think he's the man to beat. So both of these I view as 3-man groups in a way. And that's where I want to go to that low priced guy who can maybe sneakily advance to the group. And then it's all gravy. You know, if Answer gets out, you're going to rely on your high priced guys, and he's done his part.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, these groups will match up in the Elite Eight, which, again, it seems like for Jordan Spieth or Bubba Watson, it seems like they might have the easiest route even to the Final Four at this point, just because of what they see in front of them. The top guy on the board in this quadrant, in Quadrant 3, is Justin Rose, who you and I have just talked about. He's not in the best form. So if you can get a Cinderella out of this quadrant, I think that it's a great possibility that they end up getting to the Elite Eight or Final Four from it. So I think that's definitely something to make note of. As we move on to Quadrant 4, the bottom right is the last one. We will start with the highest group, or Group 3, and that is Brooks Koepka, Alex Noren, Haotong Li, and Tommy Lewis. And I think Brooks Koepka has the easiest route to get to the Sweet 16. In my opinion, the other 3 guys, we don't know anything about Tommy Lewis, or very little. You and I talked to him about Mexico and said to play him. Alex Noren is terrible this year. I mean, awful. And Haotong Li, a couple miscuts in a row. So talking about, if you agree, Brooks Koepka kind of seemed overpriced, but if you're looking for a guy to get you to the Sweet 16, might be that guy.
I 100% agree. Of all the guys that we've, I keep saying this guy's in the middle. Brooks Koepka to me is the safest of the top end guys, and it's just because of his group. I don't know what else to really say. That Noren and Tom Lewis don't seem like big threats, and Haotong Li could beat him, of course, but it's still a reach. If that's the man to beat besides Brooks, I'm okay with that. So he's a starting block for me on a lot of teams. 10-3, no problem with the price, and we'll see what happens. He should coast through the group. I really do expect him to be 3-0.
Me too. I'm not really scared at the recent form. This is kind of just what Brooks does. And if you go look at his game logs from TPC, ton of birdies, ton of big numbers. So we like Brooks this week for sure. They are going to get in the Sweet 16 my group of death winner, Group 14, Ian Poulter, Tony Finau, Keith Mitchell, and Kevin Kisner, excuse me. Ian Poulter is notorious for being the match play assassin, just so good. Tony Finau makes some of the most birdies on tour when he plays. Keith Mitchell's kind of in that Tony Finau boat. Kevin Kisner's second here last year and says he loves match play as well. So my group of death, really, really tough. Great values all across the board. Are all 4 in your player pool? Because all 4 are in my player pool.
I have just a tiny bit of Keith Mitchell. I just think it's a really tough. He was fantastic on the Florida swing. I think this is a tough ask for him. The other 3, though, I don't think you can go wrong. Poulter's going to be popular. He gets this label of being a match play specialist, and he is. He's fantastic. So I get it. It's just a very competitive group, and I do expect them to see Brooks in the next round. So guys that you can go to, but not an easy road. Coming out of that group is an accomplishment, and then beating possibly Brooks right there is going to be a really brutal road. Whereas, just to jump back for a second, as we talked about, if Justin Rose doesn't win in the top right, who else is up there, really? Like, it is wide open. Whereas in the bottom, we haven't even talked about Fleetwood and Bryson yet. There's a lot of big names down there.
Yeah, and guys that have been playing pretty well, too. So I totally agree with you. So let's go ahead and transition to the Group 6. Really tough group because you got the lowest price guy. Well, I shouldn't say. He's the D player, but not the lowest price guy. It's Kiradech Aphibarnrat. Made the quarterfinals last year, Elite 8, I think. He won that silly match play event. And I don't mean to say silly, but it's 36 holes of stroke play, and then it's 18 or more of that. He ended up winning that on the Euro Tour last year. Russell Knox is playing great golf, and Leishman and DeChambeau are not playing great golf. So kind of interesting that the lower price guys may be a little popular. What do you take of? I'll take your thoughts on Bryson first, and then what do you make of the group as a whole? You find this one to be another hard one?
I do. I agree that Group 14 is one of the strongest, if not the strongest. This is a low key one where I think you got 4 guys. There's no easy match. You don't get a breather by playing Knox or Barnrat and obviously Bryson is the man to beat. I think that's fair. I think he most likely does come out here. Knox would be second for me, just playing well. Approaches are tuned up perfectly, and if he can putt, he's going to be a threat here. So it's one that I didn't get crazy with. A lot of teams actually I omitted the entire group just because I didn't want to choose. It's very difficult, but could go from top to bottom here. Just depends how you structure.
Yep, absolutely. Next one. This one's really interesting. Obviously, Tommy Fleetwood, and I'm talking about Group 11 now. Tommy Fleetwood, Byung-Hyun Ahn, Louis Oosthuizen, and Kyle Stanley. Tommy Fleetwood has just been incredibly good, almost kind of similar to what we've seen with McIlroy, just all these good finishes, top finishes, and the win is close. Maybe this is the week where he gets the win. He showed us something in the Ryder Cup that, match play was good for him, but has struggled, has not got out of group stage the last 2 years here, where you got somebody like Louis Oosthuizen who's gotten out 2 of the last 3 years. Then you got Benny On at 6,300, who we know can go 7 under in a round, which is going to beat most anybody in this field. So what are you doing in this group? And is Kyle Stanley ready for you, or is it just going to go back to Byung-Hyun Ahn?
Oh God, I wanted to go to Kyle Stanley. It's just so hard. I don't want to say it's my favorite group in the sense that I feel most confident, because I don't. This is my favorite group though in just the dynamic. I think it's super interesting. I want to watch this group. And what I was saying, I said this earlier in the show, you have some guys at the min, like Satoshi, and I get it. Benny On, though, is playing well. He's 6,300 because this is a ridiculously strong field, but his irons, we know he can't putt, but I have no problem going with him. He is a serious contender in this group. Usti, we both kind of saw him getting on track, and finally he showed some life. I've been banging that drum for a long time now, and he did it with wizardry, a lot of around the green, a lot of putting. So I don't know how confident I am that he can keep that up, but he is Uste. And then, as you mentioned, Fleetwood, he's coming in really hot. I haven't seen it in this format yet, besides the Ryder Cup, but I don't worry about that. I think he's still good enough to really, hit the gas when he needs to. But I tell you what, 6,300 for Benny On for salary, I certainly like that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the fact that he can go so low, and that if he has that round against Tommy Fleetwood, that could be the win he needs. And then if he catches Louis on a bad day, he could sneak by there, and then we know what's going on with Kyle Stanley. So love the Benny On spot there. I think Tommy Fleetwood could come out and win this week. So both going to be probably pretty heavily played in my player pool. But I think that's a really good transition as we've basically covered all the groups here. We are going to touch on Punta Cana for just a couple of minutes at the end of this. We really don't need to spend a lot of time because there's not a ton of guys, but there's $25K to first place for the $5. So we're going to give our thoughts on it at least there. But before we do, I'm just going to give a quick little tutorial on the Fantasy Crunchers. And as you guys saw, so when I was working here, I broke it out into 4 quadrants, and the 4 quadrants are obviously set up in the way that they're going to be who they're playing against in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. So I put them all in here, and as you can see, what we want to do now, I've told it to create the 10 lineups based on the parameters that I set, and these are the lineups now that you can see on the screen here that Fantasy Cruncher has done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in this. Of course, this week is a little bit more manual process than I normally do, and of course, to go even further, what I've done is done 4 quadrants. If you want to go even further, though, you can make 8 groups, or you can and group 2 together that are going to play each other in the Sweet 16, so that way they only take 1 from those groups. This way is, for me, a little easier, and also I can very much skim through. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make sure, after I know that I've got 4 guys got a chance at the Final 4, Now what I want to do is just make sure I don't have anybody in the same group for my last two. There's a lot of theories on what you can do, but as we saw from the winning lineups last year, it just matters that you really have the final four. The other two guys aren't as important, but at the same time, you don't want to have the guys in the same group. So again, what I did was I went up to advanced options. I went up and did a create new group, and then I added in my 4 quadrants. Of course, I have each one that says must use at least 1 players from this group, so that it's pulling a guy from each of the groups, which again will give us the best chance at 4 of the final 4. So this is just a quick way to pretty much have the most optimal lineup. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to scour and we're going to go through and make sure that no 2 players are in the same group. And that's just going to be a little bit more manual process, but that's where you get the edge this week. As Ben and I talked about at the top, you don't really get it in ownership. At least in this tournament, you get it through there. So, Ben, anything you want to just add before we move on to Punta Cana for just a couple of minutes?
No, I mean, I think this is a week where can you look into the players and the matchups? Of course, I think that's important, but it's more important to structure it properly. There's going to be, I remember last year, and it's anecdotal, but DJ got murdered by Kisner, Hadwin, and Bern Wiesberger. Like, he was absolutely smoked. You're going to see guys who shouldn't beat guys advance, and that's going to happen. The important thing is that you structure as best you can and give yourself a chance. That's really all I'm shooting for. And whatever happens, happens. I have a couple guys that I like, and that's really all I think you can do in a situation like this.
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree with you there. You just want to build your optimal lineup. It's likely that you're not going to get all 6 of 6 through. If you do, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, because those final 4 guys remember, if you get to the final 4, you get the winner's match and you get the third place match. So it's, sometimes, there's a possibility that the third place guy could get as much as the first place guy, or at least more than the second place guy, depending on how it ends up. So getting to that final 4, most important. So we'll move on to the Punta Cana, the Corrales Championship here. Want to just spend a few minutes just because there's $25K to first place for a secondary contest that sees Jonathan Vegas and Sung JM at the top. I mean, this could get kind of fun, especially if you want to dive in. So, of course, we'll be putting out a little bit of content, and we're going to talk about it here for a bit. Ben, you have a write-up coming up tomorrow about it at all? You're going to put some notes or?
I put some thoughts in the article today that you can check out, and definitely look into, in Slack. Obviously, one of the many reasons to sign up. Hit us with some questions. I'm going to be looking at it. Depending on how bad the match play is, we'll see if I throw some teams in.
It's a good opportunity. One of the guys I just mentioned, Jonathan Vegas and Sung JM, another guy that you and I love to talk about, and certainly are high on this guy long term. Right now, not playing great. Good course for him last week and petered off over the last 2 days. Talking about Joaquin Niemann, 9-9 in this field. If you do make some lineups, is that where you're going to start, or are you going to just pay for Sung JM?
For me, I actually think I am more apt to nothing against Sung JM. He's awesome, but Niemann, if the wind doesn't blow, he should destroy this course. He can go low. I think he's going to thrive, obviously, in a weak field like this. This could be the spot for him. I know a lot of people think he's going to be a winner this year. Certainly going to be his best chance, just because he's one of the best players in this field. So I think you can go there. There's enough guys who, I'm just going to throw a couple names out. Someone like your boy, Roger Sloan, is in the mid 6s. Fratelli is in the 8s, which, it seems a little steep, but the pedigree of him, this is better than the Euro Tour tournaments he's excelled in. This is a very, very weak field. So I think you can go to guys who, Curtis Luck, another guy who showed a little form. These are the ones who are going to emerge. We saw Bryce Garnett win this. It's going to be those type of names. I think that's kind of how I would build in this situation.
Yeah. Now, I caught a little of your show and earlier, and I know that this a guy of yours that's coming over from the European Tour that you've talked a little bit about. Give me the elevator talk on Thomas Dietrich. I know a little bit about him, but not as much as I probably should. And just give me some thoughts on him.
He can play, yeah. I mean, he's a younger guy, so it's, I don't want to say it's a step up, It's a step up in mindset, though. You get thinking, oh, if I win this, I could be playing over here. I'm sure that goes through his mind. Aggressive player. He reminds me, I know they're both from Belgium, so that's a natural, but like he has some Peters in him. There's no doubt about it. Very aggressive off the tee. Just a good quality player, though. He can make timely putts. I don't know how he'll react to just playing in a different environment. 9,300. I like him, so I'm sure if I play, I'll use him. All in all, I think it's kind of a wait and see. I hope he plays well, but he's got a long way to go. He's a younger guy and certainly got the pedigree, though. He's definitely talented.
Yeah, let's stay on this European train as we do see more of the second tier, which really they all three of these guys likely make their ending tournament, and here they are. They're not in the top 60 in the world, so they didn't get into the match play. David Lipsky and Paul Dunn. Paul Dunn had a great finish here last year. I'm very interested as he seems to be kind of peaking. Lipsky we've seen a couple of times, and then the last one I'm just going to throw in since he's normally on the Euro Tour. Finally made a cut last week. Didn't have a great week. It's Dylan Fratelli. So how about those three guys? If you end up playing, they're going to see the lineup?
Yeah, Fratelli's a guy that I really don't mind. Obviously, he excelled in the Euro Tour. He's been over here a little, and he's played in some tough fields. I can tell you firsthand, he certainly wasn't good on Sunday. He had no birdies, but he grinded there. It was very impressive Saturday. A bogey-free round at Valspar is impressive. I don't care who else is out there. So now he's in the mid-eights in this field. He knows he can play, obviously, with these type of guys. I look to him to have a good week. And again, these are the type of players. I like that combination. They've had some success in Europe. They've taken some lumps when they're maybe a little overmatched. Now they get the best of both worlds. They're over here, but they're in a field that's a little more competitive for them. So I think that's a good combination for some of the Euro guys.
Yeah, and certainly if you're looking for more plays, like Ben said, he put it in his article, and I'll be coming out with the model tomorrow morning and my one article on it there tomorrow morning. So plenty of content to soak up. Two more guys that I like above 8K, and then we'll end the show with a couple hot takes from each. But one other guy that I wanted to talk to, two more guys. One other guy I want to talk about, Dominic Bazzelli, former winner here at this event on the web.com tour. Does kind of seem like the type of course for him. You don't need to have extreme length. You just need to have pretty good accuracy and be a good putter. So definitely like Dominic Bazzelli. And then the other one right above him is Corey Connors, who statistically probably is best suited for this course, but just haven't seen quite the results. Either of those two guys pique your interest?
Bazzelli's a guy I think it sets up well. He can get crazy hot with the putter. His problem to me is it's more on the consistency side. Like he gets, in showdown and stuff, he can get wildly effective in stronger fields than this. I'm hoping the weaker field can kind of smooth some of that volatility out, because there's no doubt that the guy can go low. And you hit match. This is the type of week. Someone like Bryce Garnett, I know I just said this, you go low here, you can win, and you can secure, obviously, your card and whatnot. It'd be huge. So I don't mind going to someone like that. I'm more comfortable with guys who at least I've seen out there rather than some of these names where I'm like, well, where's this guy been / who is this?
Yeah, and we could talk about Bryce Garnett. Like I said, we'll end the main show on this and give our hot takes right after. But Bryce Garnett, Hudson Swafford, and Peter Uihlein all priced at 7,300, and all their official World Golf ranking is much lower than the guys around him. I mean, way lower. You think this might be a turnaround for Peter Uihlein? I think it will. We saw signs last week that maybe he's coming around. He's obviously way better than most people in this field. So
I hope. I really do.
Yeah.
He's someone, again, the Euro side of it. Now, he's been over here a little longer than guys like Fratelli and certainly Lipsky and them, and it hasn't translated, but maybe this is what he needs. My biggest hesitation is that he went to Puerto Rico, and I thought, you know what, maybe this is what he needs, and he was not effective there. He was like one of the highest priced guys in that field. At least here, you're not paying $11K for him, anything like that. So Swafford, I think you kind of summed it up. These guys are clearly better than most of the players they're grouped around.
Yep, for sure.
And Tony Romo's there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Oh, yeah.
anybody else you want to talk about Tony Romo for a second, or anybody else you have looked at when you've been taking a peek, at least?
I think for me, it's just sticking with guys who, I don't worry about exactly how they're playing if they're overmatched. It's just, at least their names have been out there. If they've had moderate success, some decent like Bazzelli, people like that where it's not you're not going to see they've strung together, top 20. That's not going to happen. They wouldn't be here. But if they've shown a little glimmer of hope or they're coming over, like for me, I think Detry is fine to hit the ground running. That's kind of how I'm going to build and then see where I'm at.
Yep. Totally agree. So let's go ahead and give a hot take from each tournament. Again, these hot takes are meant to probably be a little bit fun and a little bit out there. Again, if you're in our Slack chat, this is perfect time to go ahead and ask us a couple more questions as well. If we didn't cover somebody from the match play you want a couple more thoughts on, or the Punta Cana here, the Corrales Championship, will take them as well. So, okay. Would it be too much to say? Is it a hot take enough to say that Anders Albertson has figured it out and he's in the top 20 for Punta Cana?
Yeah, the way he's been playing, that's fine. That guy, I don't know. He used all his good shots at Sanderson, I guess, because he's just been God right.
Nothing since then. And now it's the Sanderson field again. So
Maybe. So I'm going to start, and again, we're not getting crazy hot takes. This is not, I think that Rory goes packing early. I don't think he's coming out of that group.
Okay.
And I'm going to throw a curveball at all this. And we're certainly not going to be talking about this. But this is a golfer. I have to mention it because if it happens, it would be great. So on the Euro Tour, there is a guy named Maximilian Kiefer.
Yep.
I love this guy. I play him all the time. He has strung together some really good finishes. He just missed in Oman. They were in India this week. I think this is the spot for him. I am saying that he finally breaks through and wins on the European Tour this week.
Oh, I love it. I'm definitely putting in a double now with him and Sung JM and such. So
such a boss. He's playing so well. This is a great course for him too. Very technical. He's going to be up there. You're not going to get him at 100-1 or anything, but he's not going to be a favorite either. He's a good little player. I'm rooting for you, Kiefer. Take it down for me.
I love it. Okay. All right. I think Abraham Answer is your Cinderella of the week. I kind of gave that away. I'll have that be my hot take for there. And I guess my only other guy for if we want to talk about that for a second would be Adria Arnaus. I'm sure he's probably in the field out there. Guy's been real close. Shot 80 last week. Bounced back with a 68. So I'll probably make one or two lineups for the European event.
Yeah.
I like to, and it's fun out there. So.
A little. We do have one last thing from chat, and we'll get on out of here. We got to pick an outright winner for the match play. If you had to take one, who do you think takes this thing down?
All right. I think the path of least resistance helps Dustin Johnson win it.
I'm going to take a similar stance, and I'm going to say that helps Brooks win it. I think getting out of the group really easy is going to set the stage for him to make a run. I think Brooks takes it down.
Yeah, it's. I mentioned on the write up I just did here for Osman.com exactly that about Brooks. That I think his poor grouping that he has will give him some confidence in when he plays against that Tony Finau, Ian Poulter in that second round. He's already going to have the confidence. The toughest match will come against Tommy Fleetwood in that Elite Eight. That is one match I cannot wait to watch. If it is Koepka Fleetwood, gonna be a great one. So thanks for joining us. We have plenty of content already out. Of course, both Ben and I. I'm gonna have the two things coming out for the Corrales tomorrow morning. No showdown for the match play this week, which is too bad because that probably would have been kind of fun. But DK and FanDuel both went to the Corrales for it, so. Maybe we'll get one article out this weekend for it, but I don't think the contests are going to be huge. So, any final thoughts, Ben? Just enjoy the match play. I like it personally.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace. Enjoy this. We get a Valero kind of tune up, and then it's the Masters. So let's all have fun with this. If you have questions, obviously find us in Slack, and let's see what we can do. It's going to be a good week before some serious golf.
I will say, in the last 2 weeks in the Slack chat, we've had near winners in that $5 drive the green. So some really good information going around there. If you're not a member, come and join us if you like to talk golf and have some fun. Ben and I stop through there, and so does our guy Alex Awesomeo himself. Just saw him peek in there. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Good luck at the match play this week, and we're really excited for the Masters, but we will see you for the Valero next week.
Sure.
See you next week, guys. Cheers.